Alrighty, hello everyone. Welcome to the blockchain meeting for February 15th. Recording has begun. Let's go ahead and proceed to the mainnet check-in. One thing I noticed over the past 3 or 4 days, I just want to bring to y'all's attention is holy Bitcoin flash blocks, Batman. Lots and lots of Bitcoin blocks have been mined over the past 2 days that have arrived within 60 seconds of their parents. That's pretty unusual. I think we can probably expect the difficulty adjustment to take that into account probably in a week or so from now. But what it does mean though is that if you look closely at the chain state using, for example, Pascal's tool or one of my tools, you'll see that there are an abnormally large number of Bitcoin blocks that don't have sortitions in them. And that's simply because by the time the second Bitcoin block arrives, nodes haven't had a chance to submit new block commits yet. Maybe there's something we can do about that if this problem persists. I just want to bring that to y'all's attention just so you know we're aware of what's happening. And I think 1805 might actually fix that in a combination with switching over to a push-based model for dealing with arriving Bitcoin blocks as opposed to a pull-based model. Moving on to, we have a new release out for people who've been following on GitHub, 2.0.5. I know that Hero is going to be rolling this out on their machines, I think today sometime, and then we'll send a release announcement via announce at stacks.org. Earlier notes, if you're not on this list yet, all you got to do to subscribe is just send an email to announce plus subscribe at stacks.org and the system automatically adds you.
Yeah, so not to jump ahead too much in the meeting, but I think when we do this announcement, we should include a warning about issue 2444.
I agree.
Which I don't think is manifest before release 2.05, so it's new. And then we could recommend like a temporary fix for this, which is like increasing like wait time for microblocks or something like that. Because I think what's happening, like looking at Maximalist's logs, it looks like basically after enough RBFs are submitted, it stops RBFing because the fee is increased too much.
Oh.
And then it's just submitting commits. So you're gonna have like 12 commits in a single block.
That's not good.
And so if you just slow down the rate at which it wakes up, you won't have this issue. But yeah.
There is a risk of doing this though, and that increases the number of Bitcoin blocks with no sortitions.
Yeah, I agree. So
do you think it's worth trying to fold this into 2.05, or should we hold that off until 2.06?
Well, I think that 2.05 is tagged, and yeah, I mean it's tagged. I don't know. I think that if we fold this into another release, it'd be 2.06.
Okay. Yeah, and we have actually we're in the process of deploying it on some of the nodes that BBC runs. So that ship is definitely sailed.
Sounds good then. We'll go ahead and cut 2.0.6 that has this fixed then. But I'll make sure to include that mitigation in the announce email. Thanks for bringing it to my attention.
By the way, 2444, at least based on the issue, it seems like the version that he was running is 204. So if this is a regression, it's not introduced in 205. Might have been 204 or earlier.
Yeah, I think it's a corner case in the new RBF code that just hasn't fully been explored yet, just from looking at the line that Aaron points out. But yeah, that mitigation makes sense. Like just slow down the rate of mining and you won't hit the corner case. That said, let's go ahead and look at the issue board here. I see we've got a review in progress. Revisit working directory architecture. How are we doing on this, Lito? Do you need us? I see that neither of us have taken a look at it yet, but is it ready for review?
Yes, it is ready for review.
Cool. Go ahead and do that this week then, hopefully today. Review in progress. SIP 001 updates. I don't think SIP001 talks about the burn modulus. Maybe that's an issue for the SIP stacksgov/SIPs repository, because that's a bug in the SIP. I can go ahead and take that. Just sign myself. Same with moving the SIPs to stacksgov. Just before the meeting, Jason had volunteered to take a look at this and just update the links so that they point to the stacksgov repository. I might also make some issues on this to make sure that we update our docs accordingly. Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, there's one thing in the stacksgov repo.
Mm-hmm.
All the SIPs are in folders. It's
That's
just
right.
the name of the SIP or the number of the SIP. Before, it used to be the SIP plus the actual what it is about. So it takes a few attempts to find the right one if you don't know by heart what number that is. So having the folder names be what the SIP is about would be helpful.
Okay. Reason they're in folders is because per SIP 000, we can include supplementary material with SIPs like diagrams, videos, and stuff. So
nothing against folders. It's just like SIP 020 doesn't ring any bell to many people. Just adding a dash and what it is about whenever we reach 20 would be helpful.
Yep, that's a good point. Do you want to go ahead and open an issue on the stacksgov SIPs repo, and we can go ahead and get that fixed? Would that be all right?
Sure, yeah. Or I can even reorganize, but
either way, I appreciate it.
PR would be less work than overall. All right.
Looking at in progress here. Actually, sorry. Has this been merged, the docs, add BNS contract references?
I don't think so.
Cool. What's the status of this? Got 2 approvals.
Right. I haven't looked at it in 2 weeks. I can take another look to see if anything has changed, but.
All right.
Yeah.
I can take a look at it as well, since I'm on here too. How are we doing on this, Aaron? Mempool collect metrics on transaction propagation?
I have a branch running locally with this. I wanted to test it before opening a PR, but got distracted by the 2.05 release issues. So.
Yep. That's my excuse for this issue here too. 1805 was working on it, but then got distracted by 2.0.5, and then there's a bunch of SIP work that I did this past week that also took away from this, but hopefully that's past us now. Same with these things here. Make TX log a runtime setting, which I guess is part of this issue here.
Yeah.
Ludo, I think you have a PR for this now, right? Making it so that we support reusing the working dir of an existing node. We can't hear you, Ludo, if you're talking.
There is a PR for it. I think it's 2433, like better process termination.
Oh, I see. Okay. Cool. Go ahead and add myself to this too. 1641, is this still a draft?
Still a draft, yeah. At some point I will rebase it and maybe this week, I don't know.
Okay. Reed, how are we doing on the refactoring?
Still working on this, hoping to have a PR either sometime today or tomorrow, moving some of the string related code out of util into net. But yeah, I got distracted with some Stacks.js stuff at the end of last week. Or I should say distracted, but different priority.
Yeah, that makes sense. All good. Is there any progress on the reducing number of side forks?
My understanding gets a little better, but in a lot of cases, it's just block time propagation. And I'm not sure there's much we can do about it. Some nodes seem to be propagating their blocks a lot faster than others. But I don't have a silver bullet for them. Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it happens quite a bit. It also depends on how regular the Bitcoin blocks are.
Yeah, very true. If we have flash blocks, I've noticed it triggers.
Yeah, a lot of flash blocks, that happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
If the blocks are like regular 5-10 minutes, well, 5 is already fast, but there's less issues. So
yeah,
I mean,
we'll just have to keep playing with this. I know that 1805 is going to help reduce the likelihood of flash blocks hurting us, and probably switching to a push-based model will help too. It's just something we just have to work at long term.
Right. Yeah. So it's just something that we need to keep an eye on, but I don't know that there's a miracle solution. What's Ludo trying to say? Oh.
That was weird. I just got booted as well. Looks like we're still recording though. Sorry about that, everyone. Go ahead and reshare.
Yeah, on my side it said you're host again. That was weird.
Yeah, maybe Zoom's having issues today. Is Ludo on?
Yeah.
Do you just want to briefly talk about these 3 issues here with the status of Atlas?
Yeah, so I'm code complete on these 3 issues, and so I have like some basic manual testing on my machine. I'd like to maybe, so I'm working on a script that would basically test 1,000 attachments between 10 nodes on my local. So yeah, the idea is to stress Atlas. And yeah, when I'm done with that, maybe we can move the testing to Krypton or Argon, or I don't know what's the latest today. Yeah, that's
probably Krypton after this, and then we can, whenever we cut a new release of Xenon, we can do it then, I guess.
Yeah.
Ludo, do you need any help on this testing front this week? Because I know you're technically supposed to be on vacation this week.
So maybe what I can do is, as soon as I'm happy with the local testing, I can share my script, and maybe someone can take on the testing on the architecture.
And this is using the Stacks.js stuff that Reed built out. Reed,
Exactly.
maybe you can help out with the testing with Ludo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks,
all right,
Reed.
Ludo, maybe you can just follow up with Reed.
Cool. Thanks.
I'm happy to take a look as well. Reed, if you have any questions for myself or Aaron, don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Cool. Emit and drop mempool transactions. Matt, do you want to comment about this a little bit? I see you just opened it.
Yeah, I know we already talked about this before. I thought we already had an issue or something for this, but I couldn't find one, so I just opened this.
Okay, we only drop mempool transactions 256 blocks after they show up. Is that going to be okay? Because that's a few days.
Yeah, that's fine. I think there's a few things we're gonna do. I think the front end might do its own kind of front end thing with marking something as like stale or whatever after a few hours. For the API's perspective, I think we should do this just as like a single source of truth type of thing. if for some reason like we absolutely can't do this or it's like unreasonable, the API can also just drop them itself after that same block interval. But yeah, I would just prefer like to not introduce any kind of like weird desync issues from kind of duplicating that logic. That's all.
Okay. That's something I think we could imminently do. I'm just going to go ahead and just add a comment on this. Because we do keep track, we do a garbage collection every time we, the relayer thread processes a new network result. And then if it just returns a non-zero number of rows deleted, we'll just turn them into events.
Yeah, and the mempool already emits events independent of block events. So should be pretty easy.
Just making a note to do that. Testnet bug, block inventory sync does not complete, exponential time required. Something that we all know and love if on the blockchain team, because we noticed this on Xenon, taking forever to boot up. It's not exponential time, thankfully, it's quadratic time. Not that that's a good thing, but it's just less bad. The problem for the reason this happens is because before the node can proceed to download the next set of POX blocks, it has to be fully synced on the all previous POX reward cycles, and moreover, it has to have the same POX bit vector as its seed nodes do. And this is a stopgap measure that's in place until we have 1805 ready to go. And once 1805 is ready to go, then this should that should go a long way towards removing the slowdowns that can arise from the current heuristic, because the current heuristic might accidentally cause the node to advance to a POX reward cycle when it's not ready. I'm sorry, I take it back. It doesn't do that. It can stall for a long time just because the downloader may have a difficult time finding the next blocks to go and fetch. I intend to get this fixed as part of 1805 because part of solving 1805 means making it so that the block downloader and the inventory synchronization logic becomes smart enough to A, realize when they're missing POX state that must exist, and B, smart enough to realize that which blocks and micro blocks they have to go fetch in order to obtain that state. So I'll leave this issue open. 1805 is what's going to fix this issue, though. We just talked about this, the critical leader block commits, sending multiple commits per block, and that's. Do you think we could have a I know that miners might be a little bit more risk-taking when it comes to this sort of thing. Do you think we could have like a pull request out today that fixes this problem? Aaron, it looks like it's a one-line change.
Yeah, I suspect like if this is the offending line, it's pretty easy to fix.
You just need debug logs to confirm.
Yeah, I would want debug logs to confirm, and then also probably a replicating test in probably the Neon integrations. It should be possible.
Can we use the Puppet chain to construct a test for this?
Puppet chain.
I think that the Puppet chain could be used, but it would require basically a new kind of like testing framework for us, because like currently we have a couple different kinds of automated tests, and we don't have any that use the Puppet chain. So like long term, it probably is useful to have some automated tests that use the Puppet chain, but
I'm not sure that you need it in this case, though, because if you just re-RBF the same block commit enough times on reg test, you'll eventually trigger this bug if this is indeed the bug.
Yeah, I agree. I think like if like the way to test this with the current like Neon integrations test is just to not mine a reg test block for like 2 minutes and allow the miner to just keep resubmitting.
Yeah, we might confirm like we reach 100 RBFs or something like that, and the feed doesn't get exorbitant.
Right.
Or it stops. Maybe that's the right answer there too.
Yeah, I think that the right answer here is that it just doesn't submit the block commit.
Yeah. Related, I know that Maximalist opened this issue here about the miner stop mining while having sufficient Bitcoin balance. Let me see if I can get this open here. Not much context here. If Maximalist is on this call, if we could see some debug logs, that would really help us identify what's going on here. I suspect that maybe it's just a matter of waiting for the, I guess it depends on how the UTXO client and the node works, because I know that in the foundation miner, if we send it some Bitcoin, it will pick it up and start using it. So maybe it's a caching issue, maybe it's a node issue.
Could have been a case where the UTXOs were fragmented, where no UTXO was big enough.
That's a possibility as well.
Couldn't combine them.
We just don't know in this case. I guess I can just mention that right here. Can't spell. Alrighty. This issue is opened by Brad. I know that we had an issue for this prior. I already went ahead and replied to it about the POX contracting not supporting Beach 32 addresses. This is something we can't change because it's in the POX contract, and thus changing it requires a hard fork, and this does not qualify as a show-stopping bug. But for Stacks 2.1, which happens at Bitcoin block 700,000, we'll have a chance to address this. I went ahead and tagged it as such, so we can have that conversation when it's time to talk about the release criteria for 2.1. I was thinking maybe we might just, if it's possible, I don't quite know how big of a code change this would be, but it might be possible to just change it so that the POX contract takes a script pub key and doesn't really care too much about whether or not it represents an address. I don't know. Because then it wouldn't matter what we put in there in the future. Guess we'll cross the bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
Isn't there a potential if the key, that pub scripts key is not valid, that it would create problems when miners send the transaction?
Yeah, that's a concern. Yeah. If it's a non-standard script pub key, then miners might just not pick it up. Bitcoin miners, that is.
Right. And then that sort of kills the Stacks miners.
Yeah, it's not obvious how you fix this. I mean, the reason why I'm hesitant to just say make a one-off fix to support Beach 32 addresses is because what happens when Bitcoin introduces another address format.
Yeah.
Like we can't just maybe the answer here is we find a way to change the acceptance criteria at runtime as to what a valid address will be. Like maybe there can be a clarity contract that, I don't know, can say like is valid address, and it takes a buff and it returns true or false whether or not it decodes to a version byte and 20 byte hash or a Beach 32 address or whatever it is the future. Yeah. And then upgrading that contract can be done through a soft fork or something like that. I don't know. It's probably it's probably one of those design problems that seems simple but is really really difficult to figure out well. So I guess we'll have to talk about this when we talk about 2.1.
So you have a way to pre-validate the block. But yeah, not uneasy.
No, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's just definitely not easy. Like you don't know from like Bitcoin D whether or not a transaction output is a valid output until like it gets rejected by the mempool. So we either have to like re-implement that mempool rejection logic at
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. Maybe we just don't worry about it then. It's not like Bitcoin drops support for addresses.
No.
Moving on then, create signed releases. Jason brought this one up and I think I replied to it, and I very much agree that we should do signed releases. The thing that we do right now is we have the mailing list announced at stacks.org. All of the emails that we'll send from that will be signed with a PGP key, the one that I have on me, and it will contain the hashes of all the binaries. So that's kind of like it's not the best way to do this. Like ideally you just generate a machine readable, machine readable digest of all the files, like an output from SHA-512 sum, for example, and then you sign that. But we're already like 80% there. Is there anything else that people want to do to add to our current process that would maybe make this a bit easier, like maybe reproducible builds or something like that? All right, well, if you think of anything, just go ahead and reply to this issue, because I'm always interested in trying to make it so we don't have to trust GitHub to produce our binary artifacts. This is a new issue here. Event observer HTTP error discarded for new burn block. Do you want to talk a bit about this, Matt?
Yeah, I just opened this. So I think this endpoint, when the API or any event observer returns like a non-success status, it doesn't, it just kind of hides the error. So for like a while, the API was failing to parse the reward response for this endpoint, which like led to some other issue. But that was like kind of unexpected. Like normally what would happen is like everything would just like come to a halt and we'd like see the error immediately and be able to fix it. So I think we just need to like have, I don't know, maybe like a wrapper function or something for like anything we send to the event observer. And that wrapper function can ensure that the proper retry or panic or whatever behavior is happening.
What should the proper behavior be though? If there's if the downstream consumer doesn't accept the new burn block message or the new block message?
So I think historically, I think it just retried indefinitely. I can't remember what it does now. I don't know if it panics, but I'm not really opinionated on either of those. Basically, all this really does is give us like an immediate signal that something is wrong. So in this case, something was wrong for a while, like weeks, and we just like didn't catch it until someone reported.
I see.
As far as I know, if you return an error, it will keep retrying to send that same new burn block till you get accepted. Whether that's the right behavior or not, I don't know, but that's what happens, I think. So you cannot, essentially, you need to have a try catch and always return 200. But then you may miss a block.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe it's on like another thread where it was retrying, but everything else progressed. I don't really know. But yeah, historically, it's at least the new block endpoint would require a 200 success status from an event observer, or it would.
And new burn block, I think it behaves the same. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, but either way, something's not happening right here. Otherwise, we wouldn't have opened the issue. I do agree that that if you do have a downstream event observer, it's probably the right thing to do to just spin and just keep retrying, because the programming model for the event observer in the blockchain is it controls how fast its paired stacks node processes blocks. So as to make sure that no events really get lost. If that's currently not happening, then that sounds like a bug.
Do you have logs for the node in question, Matt?
No, I can try though, and I can like double check and make sure there's not something wrong on my end where I'm like returning 200 or something for this. All I know is that like things continued for like, and things like looked totally fine for a while.
Yeah. Because like it looks like, just like looking at how the burn block is getting announced, like it does look like it will spin on failure, but it'll exit if like it fails to connect to the event observer at all. Like it'll exit that spin loop. So I don't know, logs would help tell us whether or not that was occurring.
Okay, yeah, I can take a first.
The node currently knows if it has expects a downstream event consumer, right, Aaron? Like
Yes.
it's a big option. Okay, so maybe it should spin if it can't connect as well.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it should spin, because that spin it helps out a lot with initting, because there's a codependency right now where both services try to initiate HTTP requests to each other's servers. And
Right.
obviously they're not started at the same time, so spinning is like super helpful to allow them to bootstrap without like very tedious DevOps.
Makes sense. Okay, so do you want to send a PR, Matt, if you're able to duplicate the problem?
Yeah, and I'll confirm it too.
Sounds good. I think we're kind of at the end of our issues here. But maybe let's take a look quickly at this one. This is maybe more a question for DeWalker. This is not the right repo, I don't think, for this issue. Actually, how is this? Oh, this is Blockstack UX. Why is it in our blockchain?
Oh, I think I moved the issue already, but once it attaches to a project, moving it to a different repo doesn't remove it from the board. So yeah, we should just remove it from the board. It's already been moved to the right repo.
All righty. Cool. I think we're at the end of the issue list. I know we talked about these things last time. Awesome. So discussion items. I just have one, and that is I have a draft published of SIP 11, which talks about catastrophic blockchain failures and how to recover for them. The PR is open. I welcome any and all feedback. I know that Jason has left feedback already. I also know that one other person, Harold, that's right, has left feedback as well. Anyone wants to take a look? I'm hoping to try to get this merged sooner rather than later, just so we have a playbook in case something bad happens. But yeah, feel free to let me know. Any other discussion items?
So just to get clear on the plan, we will put a PR out to fix issue 2444 with the hopes of packaging it up in 206 release at some point.
Yep.
And then in the meantime, Reed is going to help out Ludo with testing for the Atlas PRs. Are there other things, since we are contemplating a 206 release, should we try and identify any other like critical items we want to pull into this release? Or we want to just push one out for 2444?
I guess the question is how critical we think 2444 is. Like if we want to release today or tomorrow, I would say we shouldn't try to put anything else in.
Yeah, I mean, given that it ends up,
there.
yeah, given that it ends up kind of, yeah, I think the experience from miners is pretty bad when they hit it.
Yeah.
So I'd be supportive of prioritizing a release just for that.
I'm fine with that. So this will be its own release. Once we have a PR open, we can announce in the mining channel that they can just go ahead and build from source right now if it's really bitten them badly. Cool. Does everyone know what they're working on this week?
Yep.
All right. We have 20 minutes to spare. This is like a record for us.
Since we have time, maybe I can put in a plug for something I was thinking about. I think that right now we have sort of issues to track, either bugs or very specific feature requests. I know that in the past, like we've had some more open-ended conversations or things that we would like to see, but that not quite like fully fleshed out issues. So I set up GitHub Discussions on the repo, and I want to just pilot that as a way of capturing ideas that don't necessarily have to translate into issues or feature requests, but where we can have more open-ended discussion. So I want to start socializing this a little bit more, see if it is effective. So if you do have things that you would like to see in the blockchain, and they could be like very open-ended and future-looking ideas. I'll throw one example out there, and this might not actually make sense, but if we had a very clean storage layer in the blockchain, it might become easy to switch out, SQLite for, RocksDB or something like that if you ever wanted to explore something like that. So that's, a type of thing that maybe we discuss, debate there, and we decide it's a bad idea for any number of reasons. But just creating space for having those kind of conversations that don't end up polluting the issues. So yeah, just putting it out there. Feedback welcome.
Cool.
I see that Alex just joined us. Alex, you got here just as we were about to close up. Are there anything that you wanted to discuss or bring up?
I don't think so. I'm reading through the list right now. I believe we discussed everything already on the issues directly, so I think I'm good. Sorry, I'm just still catching up.
Yeah, I'll go. Take your time.
What's the TLDR on the zip 011 draft?
Pull request is open. Getting initial rounds of editing feedbacks and any sorts of questions or concerns addressed. The point of SIP 0011 is to make sure that we have a game plan in place for what happens if we have a catastrophic blockchain failure, like a liveness failure or a safety failure. At the same time, it also qualifies when is a problem bad enough that you have to take a drastic action, like a soft fork or a hard fork in particular. I think that that's actually pretty important, especially if we're going to start opening up GitHub Discussions, for example, because I don't like blockchains in general going forward, especially if you subscribe to the ideology that blockchains are meant to be some sort of replacement for a otherwise untrustworthy financial industry. They kind of live and die on the reputation that if hard forks or any sorts of large scale rule changes do happen, they only happen after lots of deliberation and through a agreed upon process that takes into consideration the consent of all parties involved. So while I generally welcome things like GitHub Discussions and people talking generally about open-ended problems, I really think it's important that we get a culture of don't hard fork unless it's absolutely necessary in place sooner rather than later. And it's not specific to blockchains. It's generally true for operating systems, for web browsers, for programming languages. You don't break your downstream clients unless you have no other choice. Like, that's what makes the software business go round, not breaking other people's code. I bring this up because there's been a lot of discussion recently on the forum, for example, about trying to change the POX contract.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for explaining that. Did we also update the group on the stacking improvement discussions and the forum post and TLDR? It sounds like we're basically starting debates around how to improve stacking, what could potentially be important. And I think based on the latest understanding, we're going to slot that into a Stacks 2.1 improvement.
That's right.
So all these conversations are basically, they still have a couple of weeks to go, and we'll wait for SIP 11 to be ratified, and then later on follow up in Stacks 2.1.
You don't have to wait for a SIP 11 for this though. Like Stacks 2.1 is already scheduled to happen, and all the miners are already on board by virtue of the fact that they're running the software.
Good point, yes.
So we don't have to worry about like coordinating an out of band upgrade or anything like that. Like generally speaking, like any sort of consensus breaking change would have to go to 2.1 because that's the next possible time in which we could execute on this. But you're absolutely on the right track there. Like it should go through the SIP process because there will be a SIP for the 2.1 release and what changes it will bring. So that way everyone has a chance to weigh in on whether or not the upgrades are a good idea or whether or not they're a bad idea, anything like that.
Cool. I don't know if it is already mentioned in the current existing SIP issues for the stacking improvement, but maybe you can just drop a note and say, this will be slotted in for stacks 2.1 and we have time to discuss further and so on. And then we'll part of that SIP so that folks don't create like additional SIPs or anything else.
Yep, that sounds good to me. If you want to go ahead and alter the title maybe of the issues you have, or maybe tag them as 2.1 so that way we all know that that's the context we intend.
Tagging would be perfect actually, yeah. Tagging would be great. Yeah, that's a to-do here somewhere.
Sounds like your furry friend is upset.
Yeah, sorry for that.
All good.
Tags 2.1 tags. All right, that is a to-do. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Right, is there anything else? All right, I will go ahead and stop sharing. And I will go ahead and stop recording.